Hey, what's up? It's me, Gazbot. This is Power Morphicon Day 3, final day Sunday. I'm in behind the booth, wearing my armor, sweating. I'm a sweaty art man. Come by. I haven't had sleep in who am I? What's happening? The most tired I've been yet. The earliest I had to get up, it's a little after 7. I just brought my cosplay out to the car. We need to be at the breakfast by 8. So we need to load up the car, check out, get over there, park, and get to the breakfast in about 40 minutes from now. I'm very tired. I was having a dream about dealing with this issue, about getting up and loading the car and going to the breakfast. I was dreaming about the stress of this, and then I woke up to my alarm. So this is sort of unhappy deja vu.
So we had to load everything into the car and check out in the morning because the breakfast started at 8. So we did that, and we had a hard time finding where the breakfast was. And then walking around, we saw Chris Cantataforce filming some of his skits. He does a lot of cosplay and a lot of stuff with the actors. He's got a pretty great channel. I'm sure you're aware of it, but if you're not, check it out. And so it's just a neat thing to walk through on our way to the Power Morphicon Power Breakfast. When we got there, I made a bit of a faux pas because they say you sit down and there's a guest and they come through and like leave a chair and stuff. And there was somebody that had a bunch of luggage and stuff on a seat, and I was kind of politely like, hey, you know what, you might want to move that because we need this seat, blah 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 blah. And he's like, well, I don't know, I'm kind of leaving right from here. I'm like, oh, I know, it's just when the guest comes. Oh, he is the guest. It was this guy, Neil Kaplan. And I felt kind of stupid and bad, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't, but it turned out he was a voice actor, so it kind of wasn't so bad because how would I know what he looked like unless I had looked him up? Even if I knew his characters, I wouldn't necessarily know his face. And he did a couple Power Ranger characters, but he's like a well-known voice actor. He's Zarkon in the new Voltron, etc. And it worked out okay. He kind of became like, I chatted with him a bit because I have an animation background, and so I knew a little bit about it. And so we talked business stuff a little bit. And he was kind of a sarcastic, nice guy, which seems to be the stereotype for voice actors I've met. Kind of comedians, sort of friendly but jerky at the same time, which I kind of appreciate. And a little while later, this other voice actor came and sat down, Michael Sorich, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He sat down, and he was a nice guy as well, and he was doing some Babu impressions, and it was just kind of a good vibe we had going on there. But it is funny because last year, 2 years ago, I was at a table with Jack Guzman, who played Wild Force Black, and it was a similar thing where I didn't realize he was the celebrity, the guest, because I had not seen that season yet. I had, and this is when I continually am reminded, however big a fan I think I am of something, I am not a super fan when I go to these conventions, because everybody there knows every single person involved in every season, like by sight across the room. Whereas I'm like, oh, right, Wild Force, I haven't really watched that, so I've since watched it, and I actually like the season, and he was a very nice guy. But it's just funny that twice I've been in that situation. Last time I didn't say it to the actor's face. Luckily, I said it to the person seating me. But this time I was like, hey, buddy, move your bag for the guest. And he's like, oh, I'm me. Then a little while later, Vern Wells swung by. It's supposed to be a rotating thing, although Neil ended up sitting with us most of the time, which I take as a compliment. I guess I was able to maintain some level of discourse that was fun. And like I said, I didn't really talk about Power Rangers much. I talked to him more about animation in the industry. This was fun. Royce Herron came by, who was from the original Mighty Morphin, and she kind of clucked at us as a teacher, like, oh, you didn't finish your food, and just kind of hammed it up, and so that was kind of fun. So there were people wandering around. Selwyn Ward swung by, gave a nice hello. I've talked before about how much I like him as a Ranger and as a person who's good at interacting with the fans. It just seems to be happy all the time, like just happy to be in life, and then also I think Justin Nemo, yeah, here he is in Space Silver. He had a wheelchair for some reason. I don't know if he had hurt himself or he was just playing around, but it was silver, and he was riding around in it, having fun, waving at everybody. So again, regardless who you may have at your table, you end up seeing a bunch of people like Brendan Mayha. I had my black, I may be mispronouncing his name, I apologize. I had my Dino Charge red shirt from 2 years previous on. He kind of gave me a pointed thumbs up, and then I saw him later at the food line and chatted with him briefly. And then the Japanese actors from Super Sentai, including Hisashi Sakai, who played the Tommy, quote unquote, the White Ranger, Kiba Ranger from Die Ranger, and you can see he was a kid in that, and so now he's like early 30s, I believe. But him and the other two stunt actors, which I'm showing here, they came by with their translator, and they went by to every table. They were at a table, but then they made a point of going to every table and sort of introducing themselves and saying, hey, come see us. And, again, putting in that little extra professional effort, which I notice often from Japanese guests, actors, etc., that there definitely is like a little extra showmanship, or I don't know what not to denigrate the American actors there, but they're more casual, I guess, is the thing. Everybody's friendly, but the Americans are a little bit more casual, and the Japanese are more like, we're here to work, and it's just interesting. So anyway, I eventually made it to the show floor. And after quickly opening my booth, the big dog agreed to watch it for an hour or so I could actually do cosplay, sort of for the first time ever. I've technically worn this suit for a few minutes at another show, but this is the first time I was going to do it in earnest. And so I put it on, and I took a picture immediately with this gentleman. And then I went over to saw my buddy Lenny, who is across the way selling Godzilla art. Lenzations is his handle, tag, whatever, as I suited up. And my plan was to spend about an hour at the con walking around. I was going to go to the Hasbro area because there's a lot of cosplayers there. It's a good photo area, and then just sort of walk up and down every aisle, taking pictures who wanted them, seeing how bad it was being in the suit, and go from there. And I had to go out. There's me behind the booth. That's kind of one of my favorite pictures. But the idea, and I took a few pictures behind it, and the idea was that I went to the car, suited up, and had to walk in. And a lot of these pictures are pulled from other people's social media because I didn't have a wallet, I didn't have a phone, I didn't have anything. These pictures, I just actually asked a gentleman, "Hey, can I sit on this thing and take a picture and send it to me?" Like I actually, luckily, people are really nice and friendly, so he's like, "Yeah," and he just took a bunch of pictures and sent to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have them, other than what I happened to find by trolling around. But it is impressive that I was only in suit. I mean, all in maybe 2 hours, like getting dressed, walking there, everything, and still found quite a few pictures of myself online. I can only imagine if I was there all day. Here you can see somebody, Temple of Geek, showcased one of my pictures that wasn't even one of the ones he took. Somebody else took it. And I had a good time taking a lot of pictures and stuff. Then later, the big dog left, and I stayed in suit behind the booth, playing around, selling stuff. It wasn't too bad. I could talk. I could even take money and hand somebody stuff. If I had to do credit cards or draw, I had to take the gloves off, and I also couldn't sit down. But it was kind of a fun draw, and I did sell a Samurai Gold, which is the character I am print while in costume there, so it was kind of fun that way. I think that was right before I sold it or right after I sold it. But eventually, after a few hours of that, I had to take it off. On the way out, though, I ran into all these other golds and took a couple pictures with them. Again, these are pictures one of them took that I found online, and there was even an Ultraman orb, which was awesome because I do like Ultraman as well. And it was fun. I got sweaty and gross almost immediately, but it kind of hit critical mass within 5 minutes, and I never felt worse. And then when I was running around having fun, you kind of forget about it. You only remember it when you're standing there. And I have a foam helmet, which is the lesser than the real helmets, the fiberglass ones, but it made it a lot easier to take on and off for pictures, and I could see better, and it wasn't as hot. So even though it's like less official, it looked fine in pictures and was much more comfortable. This was a Megazord replica cockpit that me and the big dog were posing. So the day went pretty quickly. I made good sales. I had a good time cosplaying. I had more cosplayers stop by. There's Xade with an actual original I did of him, and his buddy, another common writer I didn't know that didn't have art, but I still thought it was a cool picture, costume, whatever. And I saw this Rita Repulsa cosplayer over by one of the game booths, and she looked pretty pro. And she had come by and was like looking at my stuff, and I was like, "Hey, I'm curious, is that your costume, or are you working for the game company?" And she's like, "Well, kind of both, blah blah blah." And she seemed familiar as I was talking to her, and then she's like, "Look," and I had some Hyperforce art, and I realized, oh, I know her. She's the GM from Hyperforce, which is the online Power Rangers game slash show. Her name is Malika, and she, among other things, plays the character of Alpha 55, which I had art of. And she was excited, and she wanted to buy it. She's like, "Oh, it's me." I'm like, "Oh, just take it, you know." And then I also had a few other things, including Red Hyperforce Lion. And she's like, "Oh, has Peter seen this?" Peter Sidarso, who plays the Red Ranger in that, as well as the Blue Ranger Ninja Steel. I'm like, "No, no, take it, have it." And she kept trying to pay me. I was like, "No, take it, it's fine." But I gave her my card and everything. I was like, "But if you're ever looking for any art, And so she's like, "Oh, I don't know, blah blah blah." But tried to make a little, sales pitch for myself in there amongst the meeting as well. The people next to me, for some reason, packed up early. It was an hour, 2 hours early. I never like that. And I understand they might have some place to be or get home to, but it's like, it just looks bad. A big empty booth, especially next to me, I take it kind of personal. So that bummed me out. And I didn't really talk to them the whole time, so I didn't have any friendly feelings towards them other than, hey, they left early. Then another cosplayer came by. This was a pretty awesome Lord Draken who held my art, and they were cool about it. We took a couple different poses. They're like, "Oh, take the dragon flute," and everything. So I was like, "Oh, cool, man," so that was fun.
A little less than an hour left on the final day. I've been drinking a lot of coffee to be alive. I'm in a good mood. Sales have been good, especially then. Oh, is Lenny packing up early? Lenny's packing up early. Hey, look, Lenny's packing up early. Lenny's packing up early. Look, after he closed up, he had to reopen because people wanted to buy his stuff. I told you so. It's about 18:20 after. It's officially closed, but they're not kicking people out. As you can see, some people are packed up completely, some people are in the middle of packing up, but people keep walking by, and I keep making a couple random sales. And so I'm going to stay set up until the last possible second. I'm kind of doing a slow pack up behind the scenes, but I still look completely open, and I'm still greeting people as they walk by. And so I'm a good boy.
Before the Kiba Ranger actor Hisashi Sakai had come by, you could see I have a signed piece of my art that he gave me. well, he gave me the signature. Basically, he had said he was on break, come see him, and I wasn't really able to. But then he came back and found me. He even had my business card, and he found me and was like, "Oh, I want to sign, and do you have another?" So I gave him one for him, but then he asked for another, and he was like, "Ah, I got the pen," and they signed it, and he was really cool. So it was really cool, and it was cool that he sought me out to do that, which I thought was very classy and friendly and professional and just nice, you know. The only bummer is I had this great interaction where he's like, "I'm an actor, you're an artist, we're respecting each other, giving each other gifts, American, Japanese, all that great stuff." But I have what's called an artisan. It's like his morpher, basically. I had one from Zoo Ranger last year, and I got that Japanese Zoo Ranger actor to sign it. And I had planned on going over there, giving him the art, and getting him to sign that, and paying for it and everything as a fan. But after I had that interaction, I was like, it's gonna be weird because he did this nice thing, and then if I go, and I'm giving him money, so it's like, but it's not. I know how it works. It doesn't usually go to him. It's this, and I felt like I had such a good interaction. He was such a nice guy. I don't want to ruin it and do it again. So I brought my morpher all the way there and home without getting it signed, which is fine. This was better, but it was just weird that, like, I don't know. It's weird the way this whole con has been weird, like I said, where it's sort of this combination of being a professional, being a fan, and a cosplayer all matched into one, which also resulted in sort of less than comprehensive videos than I would have liked to have made. So hopefully you guys are still enjoying these. There were a few other instances of people coming by the booth and directly stopping and talking to me or just wandering by. One example was Hector David Jr., who was like a last minute addition, who is Samurai Green Mike here, who I've seen that season, and I like it. Not everyone does. He was reprising his role in Super Mega Force. So I knew him. I knew what he looked like, except when he walked by, he looked like more like this. He had a Hawaiian shirt, long hair, a beard, and he had this sort of wool hat with, I guess it was his symbol on it, but I thought it was a pot leaf. And he just looked like some random dude. He kind of waved and I waved back, but I didn't realize who he was until later, which is kind of fine because I didn't have any art of his character, but I would have shook his hand or whatever because I did, I want to be friendly, but I guess I was friendly and then I waved. I guess what I did was I treated him like he was a normal person and not a ranger person, which is the worst crime. Actually, he probably appreciated it, but it was just funny that I didn't realize who he was till later. Another sort of last minute addition was this gentleman, Ryan Carter, who played Heckle on Dino Charge, who I actually enjoyed a lot on that show. He's one of my more favorite villains. I'm a big fan of the human villains as opposed to the rubber suit villains. And he showed up, and I guess he took Camille Hyde's table, like joking around, serious, like took it because she wasn't there. She's Dino Charge Pink, and my buddy, the big dog, went over and he was doing photos for like $10 or something. So he got like a signature and a little doodle and a photo for something like $10, which was like crazy cheap. I would have ran over there and did it, but I had no one watch my booth and I was trying to be professional. Here he is. That's the big dog is going to shoot him, which seems unfair because he did turn good in the end, but he was a good sport about it. And yeah, that just like that's the fun thing is like people pop in that don't even necessarily have booths and just sort of show up for a few hours here and there. So even if they're not officially listed, you might see some random person from the show show up. The only sort of, I don't want to go as far as say negative, I'll say embarrassing or whatever. My one fear is that, I did a lot of work getting a lot of Ranger heads done for this show, but I didn't have time to get everybody who would be there, not even close. And they were announcing people up to the last second. So even if I had, started earlier, I wouldn't have got it done, but I could have started early. Anyway, the point is, my fear was that somebody would come by, an actor, and be like, "Hey, where's me?" And I'm like, that's a silly thing. That's not going to happen. But there was an actor from a season of a show. I don't want to name the actor or the season, and they were perfectly polite. That came by and was like, "Hey, do you have any from season X?" They didn't ask for their own, just their season. And I was like, "Oh," and the big dog was there too. And we were both kind of like, "Oh no, no, sorry, I don't think so." There's so many seasons. I'm doing more all the time. Maybe if you're at Ranger Stop, And they were perfectly pleasant. They didn't give me a hard time, but I was like, this was my worst fear realized. On a more pleasant note, you can see the big dog here with Peter Sidarso, once again, Ninja Steel Blue, Hyperforce Red. And I guess, my buddy was trying to get Boom comic variants or whatever, hanging out at the Boom booth. And Peter was hanging out there, I guess, talking to somebody, taking pictures. Again, not for money, not for anything, just sort of in the area. And so the big dog said he was kind of trying not to bother him, but eventually was like, "You want to get a picture?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so there you go. Cool. Then it was sadly time to pack up, and you can see the Tupperware is working out very well for me, better than the cardboard boxes. The hand truck I bought is working out well for me as well, much better when I didn't have to stagger everything up and wheel it half a mile across the thing.
6:14, stayed almost a half hour late and still done and moving out. Reorganization. We brought too much, we bought too much. Now we gotta figure out how to get it back.
No, it's all you. I didn't buy anything.
That's true. Sweat is dripping. It's 6:44, which is an hour and 44 minutes after the show is officially over. But it's like an hour and 20 minutes since we started packing up. Packed up, got to the car, Tetrised everything in the car, and are ready to go an hour and 20 minutes. That's not bad. That's not bad. I'm sweaty.
So we've reached the conclusion, and what is the conclusion? Well, if you're into Power Rangers, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, any of that stuff, but mostly Power Rangers, it's absolutely worth going. Depending on your income level and your interest level, you can get lower or higher tier prices. The higher ones come with certain benefits like t-shirts. Well, this isn't the t-shirt, but t-shirts and exclusives and things like that. And then also you could get a lower tier one and buy some of those exclusives. What I did like is that they had a pre-order system for the main exclusives, being the Throne, the Lord Draken figure, and the Pop, that you could order them ahead of time. So it cut down on scalping. I mean, not that people wouldn't buy them and resell them, but they're not taking it from anybody, because it's not like they took part of the limited amount. They got pre-orders. Anybody that wanted them got as many as they wanted. So they're limited in the world, but if you were able to go to the con and you had the money, you were able to get it. You know, you might have to wait to pick it up for fulfillment, whatever, but I really like that system, much better than San Diego and others, because then even if they're sold on the secondary market, like I don't even have I normally hate scalpers, but if you bought 10 copies, great. It helps the con, it helps the organizers, it helps bring the prices down. You sell 9 to people that couldn't get them otherwise, you make your profit, fine, but you didn't take them from anybody that was going to get them already. So that system is great. And it's fun. It's much bigger. I went there 2 years ago. It's at least double the size. You know, it's near Disneyland, which I didn't even get to enjoy because I was too busy, but a lot of other people did. And it was, you know, there was a couple hiccups with it, but it was run, I feel, better than when it was smaller, which sounds weird to say, but I believe that's true. And everybody was generally nice and fun and happy. Even when they had to wait on the lines, they still showed up like, well, I'm in and I'm happy. You know, so everybody had a good time. From the business side of it, did I do gangbusters? No. But was it worth going? Yes. Did I make a profit? Yes. I'm not going to break down every number here, but let me put it this way. The table would be $200. The hotel room, I went to the less good hotel and split it with a friend of mine, the big dog. So that was about $200. So that's $400. And then we didn't fly, we drove, and I chipped in for gas. So that was about $100. So driving down, getting a hotel room, getting a table, that's $500. That's not including money for food and things like that, and any money I spent on toys or anything like that, which I didn't do a lot because working, I ended up spending a lot less money than I normally would have. So let's just say $500 to $600 cost for me to be there doing it. And that's not including printing costs and things like that. It's not including the hand truck that I forgot to buy. But I made money on top of that. It wasn't gangbusters. I didn't come home with a fat wad in my pocket, but I paid back everything that I put out. It actually, well, not only did it pay my business costs, but it paid my fun costs. It paid, you know, I bought a figure, I bought the video with Ann Hutchinson, paid for all that stuff, and I still came out ahead, you know, by a couple $100s, not by thousands of dollars, but it was worth doing. And hopefully if I do it again in 2 years and I have more art and I have more of a fan base, it could be more of a profit generating thing. So in this case, it was like, I kind of was going to go as a fan anyway, so I didn't really have a lot to lose. And it covered my trip, it covered my expenses, and I made some money, and I made, you know, met some new people that maybe like my art and stuff. So it was worth doing because it was a specialty show. If it was just a normal, regular superhero Comic-Con or a horror con or something like that, maybe not. I mean, you know, yeah, I made money, but it's for the amount of time I put in and the days involved, it wasn't that much money, you know, but because of the type of show it was worth doing, and I will most likely do it again in 2 years. They have Power Morphicon Express now, which is going to start in Texas next year. I don't know if I'm going to do that. Maybe. I'm going to look into it and think about it. I'm certainly going to think about it, if nothing else. So that's kind of my conclusion from both sides. As a fan, and the cosplay too. The cosplay stuff was great. If I had more time, there was a get-together gathering on Saturday where they took photos and everything, and Chris Cantata Force was doing videos. And I kind of was like, oh man, I wish I could be kind of part of that, because I'm new to this and I don't know what I'm doing. I just sort of wandered around, took pictures with people, which is kind of the point, I guess. I also wish I had more time to practice my moves. Like I had 1 or 2 stock moves, but I couldn't do like he didn't have a transformation or a henshin because it's like the mega mode, which is the ship mode, so I didn't have to know that. But I wish I had a few more poses and moves, and I noticed some flaws in my costume and things like that. But again, I couldn't concentrate on any one of these things, but they all went well. The business went well, the fun went well, and the cosplay went well. If I had focused on one, it probably would have went exceedingly well. So if you're just doing one of those, great. You know, I was mostly focused on the business. I just say 75%, and it went well enough that I would go back again. And I encourage anyone that has the ability to go as a fan, as a cosplayer, or to sell your Ranger-related art. I will say specifically, Ranger-related art. Everything I sold was Power Rangers. I think I sold 1 Voltron headshot. I sold no Godzilla. I sold no Ninja Turtles. You know, only Power Ranger stuff, and only headshots. I had, you know, the new 11x17s, the Megazord, and the Tigers. Those didn't really sell. The headshots are what sold. Lots and lots of headshots. My Mighty Morphin team, my JDF, my Tommy team. And this goes back to a lot of people complain about, like, oh man, there's always Tommy and there's always Mighty Morphin, because the huge fans that know all the seasons want everybody represented, and they get that. And I do too, but I also like Mighty Morphin and Tommy, I like all of it, but I understand, I want to see some Jungle Fury stuff come out once in a while, for example. But I understand why the businesses, Hasbro, whoever, feel the need to lead with a Tommy, feel the need to lead with a Mighty Morphin, because my sales, half or more, were Mighty Morphin and or Tommy Oliver characters. That's just the way it is. People might say they want the other stuff, but they weren't buying it, so that's business. And I also made a point of trying to get actors that were at the show. Didn't get all of them, but I got some, and some of those sold. Some didn't. I had some that I did specifically for the show. Turbo Pink, for example, the actress was at the show and is going to be in the anniversary episode and was like hyped up. Didn't sell any of her. I don't know why. She's a popular character. But do people not like the art? Maybe. But I don't think that was the issue. It was just like they just weren't looking for it or whatever. So it's hard to tell. I'm going to be doing Ranger Stop in November, and that's going to be much more of straight business. And I'm really going to try to have every Ranger that is there represented. I'm like halfway there now, so I have a few months. I'm going to try to fill in the gaps in the meantime. But that's it for Power Morphicon 2018. All good stuff. Still a little tired. Hope you enjoyed the recap, and maybe I'll see you there next time. Thanks.
Hey, what's up? It's me, Gazbot. What's up? It's me, Gazbot, and this is Comic-Con. This is not a Comic-Con.